Strange New World, Star Trek x Azur Lane crossover, by Cassus Skirata. Chapter 8 Pandora's Box of Questions. First Federation ship capable of Warp 4, NX-326 USS Franklin, reporting for duty once again. The four of them stood there, frozen. Sheffield, Edinburgh, and Akashi were frozen in confusion. What did Warp 4 inches exactly mean? As well as the strange ship designation which did not exactly conform to the standard designations of Eagle Union Consonn despite the prefix being USS. Enterprise on the other hand was frozen in disbelief and shock. USS Franklin? The USS Franklin? She said in a mix of surprise and awe. Yep, 'tis I, and frankly I'm still getting used to this having a body thing that we have going on here, hey, she said, chuckling. Ehem. The two turned to see Sheffield with her usual stoic expression as Edinburgh piped in. While it is nice to see that you are indeed getting accustomed to being awake and all. She pointed to the other currently occupied bed in the room revealing the second person they recovered from the operation. And said person was sitting up, awake and observing them with a look of curiosity. Sheffield held a scowl of disdain due to the fact that their now second awake guest looked like the world's current mortal enemy. Edinburgh was visibly scared as well as Akashi. Franklin was looking around confused as to why everyone was reacting the ways they were while Enterprise had a look of recognizing her. Now that their second guest had awoken, they could get a better look at her. She had almost pale skin, closely resembling that of a siren. Her hair was white as snow, though her appearance was more childlike. She had blue eyes that seemed to study everyone in the room. What was unusual, however, were her eyebrows which were angled downward slightly. Her bob-cut hair hid, if observed close enough, ears which resembled that of Enterprise. That's when the realization hit. Enterprise put her hand up, gesturing Sheffield to stand down. That was when their guest seemed to become fascinated with her hands, opening and closing her hands and moving her fingers. Fascinating, she said, her voice sounding calculating, analytical, almost like a Vulcan. Enterprise said out loud. Pardon? Edinburgh asked. She's not a siren, she's a Vulcan. I could tell due to the eyebrows and the pointed ears. Those are common features amongst all Vulcans, she elaborated. So she's Edinburgh was about to speak when she was cut off by their Vulcan friend. An extraterrestrial life form. An astute observation, she turned to Enterprise. You are familiar, yet I cannot recall why exactly. Does Enterprise ring any bells? Enterprise asks. The Vulcan's eyes widened a bit. Indeed it does. Ah yes, I just realized that I hadn't introduced myself. I go by the name Jellyfish, not to be confused with the seaborn invertebrate of the same name. It was Enterprise's turn to be surprised. You're Spock's ship. Yeah, I remember now. NCC 1701 USS Enterprise. Pleased to meet you again after all this time, Jellyfish. Your sentiment is wholeheartedly returned, she said, smiling before returning to her usual stoic expression. How long has it been since my destruction, if I may ask? Give or take a couple years, but if you want specifics then 5 years, Enterprise answered. I see, and are things going as they should be? She asked. Yes, everything is going as it should. Sheffield raised an eyebrow at the question but decided not to pursue it at the moment. Jellyfish turned to look at the others in the room. Pardon my manners, I haven't given you all the chance to introduce yourselves. I am known as Jellyfish as you may already know. May I know your names? I am HMS Sheffield of the Royal Navy Maid Corps in service of Her Majesty. She does a courtesy as she introduces herself. I am HMS Edinburgh and I'm also with the Royal Navy Maid Corps. That's everything I have to say about myself. She does a courtesy as well, adjusting her glasses. NYA, my name is Akashi NYA, only repair ship of the Sakura Empire NYA, said Akashi, doing a mock salute. At least, as best as she could with her comically long sleeves. Franklin opened her mouth to speak when Jellyfish put her hand up, shaking her head. No need to introduce yourself, Franklin. I was lucid when you made your introduction frankly. Ah, but I had a cool idea to go along with my introduction, you know, like a cool pose or something, she said. Enterprise couldn't help but giggle slightly as Jellyfish raised an eyebrow. Jellyfish shivered a bit as she looked down at herself once more and realized she wasn't wearing much in terms of clothing. A simple white, sleeveless gown and nothing else. Enterprise, do you perhaps have any clothing to spare? She asked. I'll look and see if I have at least something to spare. A coat at the very least. Jellyfish nodded before she tucked herself in. Warm, she murmured before closing her eyes. faint breathing was heard and was a telltale sign that she was indeed asleep. Well, Enterprise said, standing up from her seat, better get looking for clothes her size. I still don't trust her. I shall sit here and watch over her while she sleeps, said Sheffield. I'll rest a bit more now that I think about it. Also, where ain't we headed? Franklin asked. Azur Lane's base of operations here in the Pacific Ocean. I've managed to negotiate with them when I first arrived. Oh, well that's nice. Franklin then realized something. Wait a minute, whatever happened to the Prime Directive? I've just scanned everything nearby and I don't detect anything that would say that these people are at least in the early stages of space exploration. Enterprise sighed. For now, at least until we get home, I have decided to forego the Prime Directive because 1. Starfleet doesn't exist yet and 2. These people are essentially on the defensive against an alien threat. If you want, I can provide the information I've gathered so far through first-hand accounts and conducted research about this threat. I've also researched information regarding these wisdom cubes that have appeared and how they could have indeed contributed to our current situation in these human forms of ours, Enterprise said. Also, we don't have to worry about Starfleet because I can just erase the records of our time here, or I can just restrict the records to all but the highest authority, she added. Franklin looked disapprovingly for a moment before sighing. All right, I'll let it pass for now, but that doesn't mean you can just go dropping info bombs whenever, all right? Don't worry, I've limited the information I give out to just the basics, nothing to harm the development of technology, she answered. And by basics you mean? Franklin narrowed her eyes. Hey, I only gave them the bare minimum, dates and such, I swear. All right, I believe ya. Just this once I'm letting you off the hook. God above, I've only seen your captain for a while but I can already see the similarities between the two of you. Thanks, Frankie, Enterprise said, running off. Don't, she inhales sharply. Alrighty then, I'm gonna give her a piece of my mind once I figure this out. She turned her body to sit on the edge of her bed before trying to stand up. Huh. I got nice legs, she mumbled to herself. She walked out of the dispensary looking for Enterprise while the 3 others remained. The adrenaline from the mission beforehand soon wore off and exhaustion hit Edinburgh like a truck to a wall as she yawned. I'm going back to my assigned room. Good night. She walked out of the room sleepily, leaving Sheffield and Akashi. Akashi looked at Sheffield and smiled nervously. I'm in your care, NYA. Sakura Empire dorms. The situation with the spies has caused a sizable shake-up amongst the forces of the Sakura Empire. More so, it has become a great embarrassment due to the fact that it was allowed to happen with the leaders of the Crimson Axis personally bearing witness to such an event. That mattered not to the resident sleepy dreamwalker Kitsune, Floof, Shinano, for she had long openly disagreed with the separation from Azur Lane in the first place. But alas, it was Nagato who was in charge and, despite Shinano's best efforts, separation still happened. She recalled a memory from when Azur Lane was still united of when she and the other sleep enthusiasts established a sort of club and how they took naps together at times as well as consulting others on the terms of sleep. She chuckled lightly at the memory before feeling a familiar sensation that she had felt several times before. Someone was dreaming. She prepared her relatively comfy futon, which had all sorts of pillows, cushions, and blankets for the comfiest of sleep, and shut her eyes, fading into the dream realm. She opened her eyes to, at first glance, a black void. Upon closer observation, however, she could see white points which were all around her. Above, below, front to back, left to right. All she could see were stars. Beautiful, aren't they? Said a monotone and somehow soft voice. Shinano turned to see a certain siren look-alike seemingly floating, staring off into the great beyond. Shinano found out she could walk across the void and walked towards the individual. Looking around, she could make out more things such as the occasion and quite beautiful nebula here and there. The individual turned to look at Shinano, seemingly studying her if her instincts were to be believed. Quite the unique individual indeed. Ah, pardon my manners. You may call me Jellyfish and, despite my appearance, I share no correlation to these individuals host you call sirens. Shinano nodded, for she could find some truth in Jellyfish's words. She didn't call herself by any name a siren usually would, for by this point Azur Lane had an identification system for high-ranking siren individuals. If what she is seeing is to be believed, the being in front of her bears a strong similarity to the high-ranking siren going by the name of Observer Zero, but yet something told her that this individual was vastly different. This one's name is Shinano, associated by many as the Dream Walker of the Sakura Empire, she said. Jellyfish simply nodded. Then she asked a question. Why are you here? Or, more logically, what are you doing here? What do you wish to learn of our dreams? Shinano was even more confused. Usually when she enters a dream, there is usually nothing the afflicted person can do but watch. She had, much to her guilt, caused nightmares on purpose to demoralize enemies of the Sakura Empire, and that was usually the case of what happened, but here it was different. It was hard to tell if this jellyfish was lying, but it was made clear that she was honest from the look she gave off. One of blunt honesty and great logical understanding that rivaled their best scientists. This was indeed a Kansen and not a siren, yet that did not help. Shinano gave her honest answer, at least she hoped it sounded honest. This one has sensed a dream manifest. As a result, this one has decided to investigate and is now here speaking with you. This one is simply curious about this dream, she said, looking at the stars all around. Jellyfish simply stared before nodding. Your answer seems within the reasoning of logic. She closes her eyes, thinking for a moment before opening them. But a wise Vulcan once said that emotions are at times also as important as logic, and I can see it when I look at your eyes. What exactly is it that you see in this one's eyes? Shinano asked. I see conflict. Not the physical kind, but the mental kind. Of conflicting ideals and of differing opinion to those around you. I have studied the split of the factions of Azur Lane. I hypothesized that not everyone was happy with the split. You are evidence as to such. You are also sad. Sad that you are not able to see your friends again, and sad that you may also have to face said friends in the fields of battle. Is this not correct? Shinano's eyes widened. The Kansen had seen right through her, and that in itself is quite the accomplishment. But Shinano, as cryptic as her descriptions of her dreams may be, was always an honest person at heart, so she answered truthfully. Yes, you are correct that indeed this one feels sad and conflicted of recent events that have transpired. This one indeed hopes for a peaceful resolution to this conflict, for this one wants to see her fellow comrades, nay, friends again. Jellyfish nodded. Your statement is indeed quite truthful and honest. She seemed to smile a bit. Honesty is a favorite trait of mine to find in people, for I am also an honest person. They both sat there for a while, not speaking until Shinano asked a question. Jellyfish, if that be thy name, may you grant this one's one selfish desire before we wake? Jellyfish simply nodded. Your appearance is that of a siren, yet you claim that you are not associated with them. What exactly do you mean by that? Jellyfish appeared to contemplate for a moment before nodding. Her eyes glowed a bright sky blue as the space around them seemed to shift. Since you have been honest, then it is only fair that I share my story. I was built as a research vessel for one purpose and one purpose only. A ship seemed to fly the two. Shinano turned and observed the ship. It was of an unusual design that couldn't be described in words exactly. But when she looked where it was headed, she couldn't help but stand agape. In front of her was a star, and that star seemed to be expanding. It almost seemed angry before it exploded, great fire spreading across space. What you are observing is not your sun, fortunately. What you are observing is the Romulan sun going supernova. It threatened the galaxy as a whole and, more importantly, it threatened to swallow the inhabited planet of Romulus whole. They both observed the ship approach the supernova, the thing still expanding in size. How did you? An invention resulting from a research collaboration between the United Federation of Planets and the Vulcan Academy of Science was our solution. We called it red matter. Even a small amount was enough to deal with a supernova of this size. Unfortunately, while I did accomplish my mission, Romulus was still consumed by the supernova before the red matter could be deployed. Jellyfish seemed to have a look of regret on her face as the planet that was called Romulus was consumed by the ever-growing supernova. I had little time, and so I shot the red matter into the supernova. The ship was seen ejecting a canister into space that was absorbed by the supernova. Then, the supernova seemed to shrink as a giant spacetime anomaly absorbed it and took its place. A black hole. Shinano could only stare in shock, amazement, and fear. The very ship she was talking to now had the ability to create something as destructive as whatever she was seeing in front of her. Of course, the leader of the Iron Blood, Bismarck, had the ability to make black holes when she was under the influence of the Black Wisdom Cube she was manipulated into using by the Sirens. That incident is what cemented Shinano's belief that the splitting of the factions was more of a detriment than a benefit. The current conflict only added fuel to that fire. As I was making my way back, Jellyfish continued, I was intercepted by the Narada under the command of the Romulan by the name of Nero. The scene shifted to reveal a massive ship that seemed to appear out of nowhere. It made Jellyfish seem like an ant to a boot when it came to size. We were both sucked into the black hole as I was making my escape. I emerged into an empty plot of space, disoriented but intact. That was when, as the humans say, the cat and mouse chase began. The jellyfish was seen flying around before the Nagara appeared, trailing behind it. No matter where I went, they followed without fail. Eventually I ran low on fuel and had no choice but to surrender. The scene then shifted to the inside of the Nagara with the jellyfish promptly captured and surrounded by Romulans. Someone seemed to walk out of the ship, surrendering to them. That is Spock, my pilot. He was marooned on an ice planet while the Romulans did whatever they wanted with my red matter reserves. The scene shifted to an almost desert-like planet. That is Vulcan, my home. The planet then seemed to implode inwards before being replaced by a black hole. It was promptly destroyed as the first target the Romulans set their eyes on. Shinano could only look at Jellyfish in pity as she appeared to be tearing up in sadness. I could only watch. Her fists balled up in rage before she took a deep breath and seemed to calm down. I apologize. I almost lost myself there. Shinano gave her a caring look before she wrapped some of her tails around Jellyfish, comforting her. Is this sufficient, Jellyfish? Jellyfish seemed to grab one of the tails and hold it gently, hugging it. Comfy. The world around them gradually started to lighten up white, indicating that the time to wake up is soon approaching. We shall continue this the next time we meet in this realm if you so wish. It is almost time for you to awaken from your slumber, Shinano said softly. Jellyfish could only make what sounded like a cute sound of agreement before the world turned white. Shinano awoke to find herself still in bed. Her recent experience has given her a lot of food for thought as she realized just what exactly they were dealing with. It also revealed a plethora of questions that she just didn't have the answer for. Just who were they facing against? Jellyfish awoke to the sterilized-looking environment that was the dispensary. In a chair next to her bed was Sheffield, still diligently watching over her. She also appeared to have something folded on her lap. Ah, you're awake. Enterprise gave this to me to give to you since you were still asleep when she came back. We're only a few minutes away from our base, so it is recommended that you put this on. Jellyfish nodded and got out of bed to notice that she had no form of footwear whatsoever. To her relief, it seems that Enterprise was also kind enough to find some shoes of her size as they were also there next to her bed. She put on the article of clothing that looked to be a trench coat with a collar that reached up to her mouth. They both walked to the shuttle bay as everybody else was waiting for them there. They reached the shuttle bay where the shuttle was being prepared. Franklin noticed the both of them first as they walked in. Hey, how'd your nap go? We tried waking ya up but by God you are a heavy sleeper, Jelly. Jellyfish raised an eyebrow. Jelly? Yeah, Franklin responded. Little nickname I came up with for ya. I personally think it's a little cute. Just like you, she said, giving her a head pat. Jellyfish made a cute noise at receiving a head pat. Alright Frankie, as much as I like the sight it's time to cut it. We need to beard the shuttle, Enterprise said, cutting in. Alright, Franklin said, giving a pout. They boarded the shuttle and made their way down to the base, special package in hand. The question that resides over everyone now is what exactly is the nature of the Black Wisdom Cube that we have just taken, and will the Sakura Empire want their precious cube back?